Let it fly. Oh, hello. Whoa. Hello, everyone. I just hit the live button. All of a sudden, whoop, all these people appeared in the chat. Hello to everyone. Wow. My goodness. Tons and tons and tons and tons. Hello, 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 everyone. So good to see you all. My goodness. I'll go through the names here in a minute. Thank you all for joining me. There's quite a few of us here, and this is great. Yeah, it's so good to see that that so many people are interested in this kind of a conversation, because this is not your mainstream. Non-duality is not your mainstream spirituality. It is very, very different indeed, and and but you know, the whole thing about it is, if this were a philosophy or a, you know, just a bunch of religious tenets or just some kind of nice ideology, I wouldn't be the least bit interested. You know, I had my full of those, you know, believed a lot of stuff, learned a lot of stuff. But this is the only thing I find, this kind of approach, which is an approach similar in Zen and in Vita and a few other strains of spirituality, that is a direct inquiry into the nature of yourself. And that's what satsang is about. That's what it's for us to together look, you know, to help. You know, the job of the teacher is to simply help you see through assumptions that you hadn't seen through yet. And we all have them, right? We all have our blind spots. So so to develop the capacity for genuine self-inquiry is the most powerful thing you can do. You've heard me mention before, you can ask somebody about just about anything. What their life is like, what they're like, what they want, what they desire. And it can describe in great detail the things you want, the things they've done, things that they've accomplished. Everybody knows what that is. But then when you ask the question, but who are you? You either get this blank stare, it's like, well, what are you talking about? Or there's a realization that you don't really know. The I we normally refer to as ourself is an assumption. It's an inference. It's an idea we hold that we don't challenge. We have this mental picture of ourselves. Oftentimes that mental picture took shape, you know, when you were very, very young. Not the physical picture, obviously, of course, but a picture of who you are, what's possible, what isn't possible. These things get instilled in us when we're very, very young. And for the most part, while they morph a bit, they don't substantially change. But the real thing is that everybody believes this self-image we have, whether it be, you know, a great accomplishments and achievements and all that, or if it's self-demeaning and I hate myself kind of self-image, it's just an image. It's an image in the mind. Every image is self-limiting. Every image is constraining. And what we're really interested in, and what non-dual inquiry is about, is finding out who it's an image of. And the way we do that is we start paying more and more attention to the sense of being and less of paying attention to experience. What is being experienced? There's a tendency to identify with our experience, right? Our immediate experience, you know, I'm my body, I'm male, or this old, I live here, I've done these things in my life. So we identify with our memories. We identify with our beliefs. I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, I'm a Buddhist, you know, I'm a Muslim. We define ourselves by those, not realizing we then start acting them out and never question what's a belief just an ideology, something, a philosophy. And what's me? Who's the one believing it? This is what satsang is about. And I am just so delighted that there are so many people, an increasing number every day, that are interested in doing this kind of inquiry. Because you realize that as long as you are identified with an image of yourself, you're going to feel the sense of limitation. In other words, you're going to suffer. You're going to feel the contraction, the constriction, right? But you're not really constricted. You've literally almost mesmerized yourself into this image that you're conforming to. You invented a container. You hopped into that container, put the lid on really tight, and now you think that's all there is. You don't realize you're in a container. Realize all you have to do is unscrew the top and get out. And non-dual inquiry is the way you get out. But you get out by getting in. You get out of the false concepts of yourself and into the direct experience of yourself, which is not a concept. You're not a concept. You're not an idea. You're not a belief. You're not an ideology. You're not a religion. You're not a philosophy. You're something completely different. You're real. You know you're not an idea. You're the one to whom ideas appear. You are real. So who are you without all the conditioning, without the memories, without the thoughts, without the concepts, without the associations, without the history? Who are you with nothing additional added? Just you. That's what we're here to discover. And that's what satsang is all about. And thank you all for joining me on this merry little journey. Just let me say hello to people here. Roberto in Madrid, good to see you, my friend. Rosario in Spain, thank you for giving us your love and your time. You're very welcome. John in Glasgow, Robert in Nevada, Ariane in Connecticut. Hello, Ariane. Wonderful to have you. I think I recognize your name, but are you new? Bill B from California. Hello, Bill. David P. David, good to see you. Hi, everyone from Los Angeles, from David. Jay is in Sacramento. Hello, Jay. Liza on the East Coast. Sarah Sands in France. Hello, Sarah. Teresa Hoy, or would I pronounce it Oy, depending on whether I'm supposed to say it with some kind of an accent. Hello from Croydon in South London. Wonderful, wonderful you're here. Ryan in Philadelphia, Brian in Virginia, Mernebelheim, South Africa. Wonderful, wonderful. Ursula on Madeira Island, Amir in Boulder, Ava in Poland, Mary in Niagara Falls, Ravi in Romania. That's great. This is amazing. Alessandra is in Monterey. Karin says hello. It's Kabdavian in the Kabadvian, but Karin's good, yes. David and Elaine in Southeast England. Hello, guys. Dorothy in Denmark. Daryl in Maryland. Anna Maria. Hello, Anna Maria. She's in Poland as well, I think. Roberto. Last couple of days, I have been feeling like my big toes and my little left fingers kind of numb and tingling. Could that have something to do with the flow of energy or something related to EFT? Absolutely, it could, and it probably is. If you've been doing any kind of processing on yourself with the intention and using like EFT to release old energy and old patterns and old traumas and the like, yeah, you can have all sorts of things can happen. Times I've done it, I've just all of a sudden I've been so cold. I have 3 blankets on me, I just can't get warm, and then a minute later I'm sweating, laughing. The body can start doing all sorts of stuff. All sorts of different kinds of feelings will take place. It's a very gentle release of this old energy that's gotten stuck. And of course, if it's stuck, imagine a river that's got a bunch of rocks in the way now, and it's kind of backing up, and it's sitting there. And you take out a couple of the rocks, and it starts flowing through. And a couple more, it gets even more forceful, and eventually it just starts pushing the rocks out of the way. Because this energy has been built up back here, when this obstruction starts to go down, it can, you know, it can cause a little bit of commotion on its way out. Don't worry, it'll all settle it. It'll settle itself down. So, and I'm glad you're doing it, because it's such a powerful thing when you're working with things like anxiety. Ariane, can you speak to the concept of purpose? Does everyone have a specific purpose? Or is it purer than that? Like, purpose is just to remember who we are and then live from that? Well, you could speak to it on all different levels. I can speak to it, since me. I can speak to it on various levels. On the absolute level, nothing has a purpose, right? Because, you know, when we use that word purpose, it's as if my life serves some external interests, right? And my life is to serve that purpose, which makes the purpose bigger than me. It means, like, I'm kind of like a little cog in this wheel, and I've got to do my job, which of course means if I don't do my job, then the whole purpose it goes to hell in a handbasket. So, but in the absolute state of your being, you simply are. There's no purpose for it. There's no reason for it, right? It doesn't serve anything other than your own existence. You are. When you look at it in terms of the absolute being, which is pure isness, which is pure nowness, it isn't connected to some kind of future, something that's going to happen, and it isn't connected to something in the past that did happen. It is the eternal now, which means it just is. It didn't come into being for any reason. It didn't come into being at all. It has always been. You have always been. Now, this form, right, does come and go. And this form does serve a purpose. What is the purpose of the form? Well, what's the purpose of the form of your car? To get you from one place to another. It has a very definite purpose. And if you don't need to get any place, right, you don't need the car, right? So the form does have a purpose. Every form is unique. This form seems to be very well suited for sitting here talking to you. There were some other things in my life I did that I seem to have a real knack for, right? But that's kind of the relative appearance in the expression, in the manifest world, whereas the essence of you has no purpose at all, because it simply is. No beginning, no end. It is timeless. So if you're looking at it from the deepest point of view, the purpose of a human life is to wake up to the fact that you're more than a human. That consciousness is not tied to this body. The body, there's nothing wrong with the body. There's nothing wrong with our experience of having this body. It's a vehicle through which self-expression takes place. And the more you realize who you are, which eliminates, you know, the limits and the boundaries and the traumas and all the stuff that have contained us, the more beautifully expressive this instrument becomes. But there's no like overarching purpose, right? The purpose of my life is to do less and such. I mean, right now, the purpose of my life is to sit here and talk to you. When this is over, the purpose of my life will be to turn out the lights and put things away. and after that, it'll be to sit down and do something else. And after that, it'll be to make dinner, right? So purpose is something that is relative. It comes and goes. Every moment asks something from us. The highest purpose, I don't even like to use that word, purpose. Right? The highest thing that a human being can become interested in is the nature of their own true being, which is to wake up, right? Now, when you discover who you are, you don't have to then live from that, right? It's not, oh, this is what I am. Now I have to kind of act it out. The act of discovering automatically begins to colonize the entire energy system, the entire form, and begins to make it conform to the true center of your being, which is who you are. And when we're still unconscious, when we're still in our illusion, right, we believe that this form is who we are, and all the thoughts we have about ourselves is who we are. Obviously, it is absolutely essential that we wake up from that, because that's suffering. That's our containment. So you could say that that is your ultimate purpose, is to wake up to that. But I don't really think of it in those terms. I see it more as just something inside of you wants to know who it is. You're here, you're in satsang because you want to know who you are. Right? Is that your purpose? Just put it aside. Do you want that? Does it animate you? Does it engage you? Well, that's all you need. I mean, purpose is not something imposed, right? Whatever you're drawn to, whatever you tend to like, has a feeling of purposefulness about it, right? It's just not external. The right way to talk about purpose is just your own nature. You are your purpose. Your own nature is to simply be who you are. And as you're being who you are, you'll find that while in the essence, we are all exactly the same essence, every single individual form of it conveys and manifests an aspect of that infinite oneness that cannot be expressed any other way. Therefore, Ariane is unique in all space and time, and it never was before and will never come again. So that form then serves the purpose of giving unique expression to the infinite potential, which is the actual essential being of all of us. And as we turn more deeply within and go beyond thought, emotion, and sensation, which is all there is of experience, into this place of simply an awareness of being aware, an awareness of your own being, the sense of your own being, you find that that sense of being is not bound by anything. It has no boundaries. And since it has no boundaries, there's only one of them. There's only one infinite. There aren't a bunch of different infinites, right? Or a bunch of different awarenesses. There's only one awareness. So that is you, and experiencing the universe as this particular form. I think I've jumped around quite a bit to different aspects of it, but don't think of purpose as something you have to find. It's what you are. It's an ongoing discovery, right? Because your purpose is to be who you are, which you are doing all the time. We become more and more conscious of it, and become more and more conscious of it, we discover we've actually been manifesting and living out our purpose the whole time. It's just we didn't believe that because we were identified with a very, very small version of ourselves, a very, very small, insignificant version of ourselves. And you discover that your purpose then is infinite. What's the purpose of being? To be. And what's the purpose of the infinite potential? To give rise to eternal and infinite form. It never ends. It's inexhaustible. And every form serves the single purpose to reflect the one. Does that help? I know I bounced around in different places. I probably gave you about 48 different perspectives on it, but it all boils down to the same thing. Just be yourself. And that takes care of everything else. Hello, Mary. Your meditation yesterday was great. Your answers to karma. I find what I hear hits to the core, but does not stay as I was like. It is like I know this, but go back to the illusion of a separate me. Yeah. You can't go back to the illusion of a separate me, right? Remember that identification with the form, the habit energy of attention constantly looking outward and latching onto things. And that's all it is. When identity latches onto a particular self-image, that's identification, right? But you're not actually going back to the illusion, right? It's just that the field of view now is filled with this, and that feeling of belief, the feeling of being the separate self, is so habitual and strong that it feels like you've lost it. But who are you? Right? The illusion is not self-aware. You're aware of the illusion. It's not aware of you. Right? You're aware of the thought pattern that believes the illusion, right? And that's what it feels like, that there's separate me. I've got to get out of that. Well, you're not in it, are you? You're looking at it. Right? We don't have to turn this into a witch hunt or a bar brawl, right? You don't have to fight with these things. Simply look and see where you are actually looking from. It's that simple. Where are you looking from? Are you on this side of the lens or that side of the lens? If you can see it, it isn't you. I don't care how much it feels that way, because it's a habit energy. It's an energy of it feels it's like an addiction or being mesmerized, right? It doesn't matter though, right? Where are you looking from? Keep going back there. Doubt will arise, right? But who's looking at the doubt? So you'll see that doubt arises, but there's no doubter. An illusion arises, but the illusion is the one who believes the illusion. The belief and the believer are one. The dream and the dreamer are one. Right? The dreamer is the dream. And you're not either, because you're looking at the dreamer and you're looking at the dream. Where are you? The other part of this that will speed this up for you is there's a very subtle energy, a very subtle habit of the mind, that even though you've had some deep insights and stuff just suddenly becomes very, very clear, the mind, the whole quest, the seeking to find who I really am, the mind is looking for an object. It is looking for something. I mean, it's settled on things all through your life. This is who I am. 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 The mind cannot grasp the notion that what you're looking for is not a thing. You are not a thing. Therefore, the mind cannot see you. It cannot know you. It cannot conceive of you. And you'll notice that's what the mind's trying to do. It's trying to just create a different version of you, a better, an upgraded, Mary 3.1. That's what it wants, because without it, there's no mind. Right? The mind is only thoughts. And if you're not a thought, nor can you be conceived as a thought, no thought can possibly capture you, you're not a thing. Awareness is not an object. The best we could describe it is just like a field, like space. It is like space, but it's even more subtle than space, because awareness perceives space. Space does not perceive awareness. Space is about as close as we get. Spaciousness, space-like. Because if you look at space, there's nothing there, right? Take all the objects out of space, and space literally doesn't exist. There's just nothing. When we talk about the huge distances of space, we're talking about between objects. Take those out, and there's no measurement. There's no ruler to measure anything with. It becomes dimensionless. You are space-like. You can't conceive of space, can you? You can't conceive of yourself. You cannot know yourself. And this is the habit of the mind, and you'll see it, the habit of seeking. The thing that perpetuates seeking is looking for someone. You're looking for Godot. There's nobody there. The one looking cannot be seen because you are a field of awareness. You are not a thing. There's no thing there. Yet it gives rise to all things. That's the whole mystery and wonder of it. You are not an object. So you're simply aware of this habit energy of the mind, creating someone who goes back to the illusion. And the entire thing is being watched by you. The illusion, the motion, and the one who's getting eluded are all being watched by you. The seeker and the seeking are both being watched by the sought. Does that help? I guess I'll keep doing those meditations, huh? Where are we? Where are we? Oh my goodness. Lots of questions. They popped up. Bill B. I know a smart empath with a perpetual trauma cycle. She is educated and suspicious of gurus. Good. I point her to you, but she feels I'm pumping a guru. Am I crossing the line between helping and fixing? No, I don't feel that, Bill. It doesn't feel that way to me. You generally want to help. You know, this helps. You know, I'm not a guru. You know, and even, you know, I'm not a guru in the way people think of it, right? In the way it's come to mean in the West. The word guru is a Sanskrit word that simply means one who dispels darkness. But the one who dispels darkness is always in here, right? It's always our own seeing that dispels the darkness. And I know some very empathic people. More people are extremely sensitive to the environment around them, and they need a guru. They need somebody to help them navigate that territory, which is invisible to the senses, but quite visible energetically. Right? And it can, until one can really distinguish what is truly my thinking and what is habit energy, what is the thinking going on around me that I'm owning, this capacity to fall into cycles of becoming traumatized and overwhelmed will continue. I hear about things like empath schools and things like that, and I go, please wait, no. No, don't go trying to increase that kind of power of empathy without developing the inner fortitude, the inner sense of your own being. The rest of the gifts will come. I mean, for ages upon ages, sages have warned, don't seek the city powers. Don't seek the special yogic abilities. They will come. If they come, they come. You know, Nisargadatta, very little. Stuff would happen around him, but it wasn't like the big miraculous thing. Same with Ramana, same with Buddha. All sorts of things happened around. They made absolutely nothing of it. Christ made nothing of it. He did all sorts of miraculous things. He made nothing of it. But they made a huge deal of that and made that the central focus when Christianity basically got abducted to serve the interests of the Roman Empire. He would do things, people, and say, now don't tell anybody that this happened. He didn't want that, oh, we're coming for the miracles, right? He didn't want that. He wanted people come for the truth, and miracles happened as a consequence. But it was one of the ways in which they could put him up there as being the great exception, not a sage, but God. And we all know how that went. That whole story, Roman Empire, all the way up to fundamentalisms and the Westboro Baptist Church. So just quietly cherish your desire to help her. Just quietly cherish it, right? That's just an open-heartedness. And sometimes, discretion is the better part of valor. Sometimes there's nothing to say. But believe me, that presence of love, has its effect. It does go out there and touch people, and then at the right moment, right time, the words will just come. They'll just happen when there's an opening there for a genuine exchange to take place, a genuine conversation to take place. Um, there is the fine line between helping and fixing. It's only just intention. If there's a sense within you, there's really nothing wrong with anybody. Our thought patterns and our sense of identity have just become so narrow that things look like they're broken, right? There's nothing wrong with you. There's a lot wrong with what we think about ourselves, right? So you don't have to be fixed, but our self-image, our self-concept, our assumptions have to be questioned and dropped. That's not fixing like something was broken. That's inquiry. It's a very intelligent way to be in the world, to be with yourself. I mean, boy, our world would be in a whole lot better shape if we had actually intelligent discourse. If we knew how to examine assumptions, go, well, this isn't really true. But we don't. We're not doing that right now. We have willful ignorance instead. So again, just it's always love that makes stuff happen. But it's the primal energy. It's the perfume of the absolute. And so to simply hold that for her and not be intimidated if she goes into one of these trauma things. Don't be intimidated by what happens in the whole nervous system and in the mind when it goes through these cycles. Just mean absolutely rock steady and loving and present. And eventually that will get through. It always does. It always does. So you're not crossing any line. I can feel it. I can feel your sincerity. And just the fact that you would ask that question means you haven't crossed the line. The people who cross the line don't ask the question, right? They just assume, and they're in there doing their thing. If there's enough consciousness to ask the question, it means you haven't fallen over. You're good. You're clearly on this side of the line. Thank you for that question. Be fun to meet her. Anyway, Roberto, also my neck. Oh, did I miss something earlier? Also my neck. Oh, also my neck. Okay, I answered it on her. And leg muscles are very contracted. I'm being treated by a physical therapist. Thank you. Well, good. Yeah, keep all that up and keep up EFT. You know, they're helping the body respond, the body do what it needs to do. And simultaneously, you're working at the level of the energetic. So it's a nice combination with, with two people both motivated by love, a really pure sense of love. You can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong. It's a form of lived prayer when you're doing that, working that together. And she may even be interested in EFT. A lot of them are, because they do get it. Right? Barbara in Sweden. Hi, Barbara. Good to see you. I guess this is easier for the people in Sweden since I've started an hour earlier. Have a little sip of my thing here. Hello, Sue in South Africa. I have been seeking truth since my early 20s. I did 25 years of Christianity. I am so grateful to have finally found the truth through non-dual inquiry. I spent many years in various flavors of Christianity as well. I mean, as my spiritual awakening began to happen, I was living in a small town in Illinois. I mean, there wasn't anything but, and this is 50s and 60s. That's all there was, right? But fortunately, something inside of me, which I often refer to as the Christian mystic or the new tongue of spirit, just got me to be seeing something in the Bible stories that was metaphorical. This is long before I learned anything about Joseph Campbell and mythology and all of that. Like I said, it was not a liberal education. It's very conservative world. Um, uh, but little by little, it was in the 90s that I finally ran across I Am That from Nisargadatta Maharaj, which just blew my mind. Right, I've been I've been seeing these things, and I've been articulating, seeing the stories, and I'm going in understanding. And there it was, just laid out in plain English. I went, what? Why did it take me so long to find this? I've been digging, for treasure and the like, trying to interpret and figure it all out. And here is just being absolutely spelled out in front of me. No, I didn't know about. I mean, I didn't know about Ramana Maharshi or Papaji or any of these people. Then, right after that is when I discovered Zen Buddhism, and again the Buddha just saying it. Right, I went, oh my God, where have you guys been all my life? But the non-dual inquiry actually just made me completely understand the real meaning that all of these various stories, and not just the Christian, which is its own mythology, as is Judaism and Muslim, but also all sorts of mythology, Native American and Aboriginal tribes all over the place, ancient cultures, even the gods of the Romans and the Greeks and the like were just, it was utterly filled, some more than others, but they eventually got down to this pure essence from which everything arose, this pure oneness. Clearly in the Hindu, the Indian tradition is where it is the most directly laid down. And it's said that the Sanskrit language that's why it happened, was to give this voice. So I too was overwhelmed with gratitude when I actually found this kind of genuine non-dual inquiry to go right to the heart of the matter. Didn't have to pass go, collect $200, nothing like that. Just right to the heart. Who are you? Right? Lay everything aside that's clearly not you, which means anything you can perceive. And what remains? But it's not an object. It's not an object, and that's the key. Speaking of which, non-dual inquiry, let me make a little pitch here for myself, and also for leave that up there for a second, and also for I've been invited to do a live retreat at the Krishnamurti Education Center of Canada. I did a live one a while ago, and it was a lot of fun. It was great. So they've invited me back to do another one. We planned on it. We'd scheduled it for July, 9 months ago, and wouldn't you know it, this pandemic happened, and there are no live events. Travel is very difficult and the like. So we've decided to do it online. So it's 3 days. It'll be like 3 2-hour sessions. We've scheduled the times. It's going to be I think 6 o'clock in London, 6 in the evening. It'll be that, which means it's going to be 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock in California, 1 o'clock in New York, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 24th, 25th, and 26th. Ooh, I said to the 25th. Oh, it's the 24th to the 26th. Hold on. Let me fix that real quick. Whoops. I did. I must not have saved it. For the 26th. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And like I said, it's being sponsored by the Krishnamurti Education Center of Canada, which is a beautiful place. And those of you who are not familiar with Krishnamurti, he was one of the great spiritual teachers of the 20th century. Not just a non-dual teacher and an enlightened being, but also was very, very active in creating society and education and all sorts of things. Just a marvelous human being. So it's quite an honor to be associated with those guys. It's cheap. It's $100 Canadian, which means it's even less US. It's donation. I'm getting a little bit of it. They're getting a bit of it because it is going through them. It is an actual legitimate write-off type donation. They survive completely on donations. Um, so I'd really love to have some of you there. We'll be doing it on Zoom, so it won't be like me and chat. It'll be me. Everybody will be there, and we'll be able to talk and interact, which would be really fun. So I do hope you guys will join me in that. Again, just go to gpwalsh.com -KECC. I made it as easy as possible to get there, and you can register. I don't know what it costs in euros. I think it's like $70 US. So it's really quite reasonable. So and the entire thing is called non-dual inquiry, the merging of the heart and mind. And so I'm going to just spend the entire time, 2 hours a day, which will undoubtedly go over unless they make me stop, just exploring how to do this kind of non-dual inquiry. How do you do it? Right? How do you get to that point where it's the direct experience of yourself with nothing else added, not a thought of you, right? Not an image of you, not an experience of you or a picture of you or a description of you, but the actual you. So I hope some of you guys will join me on that. In that we can have up to 100 people. So by all means, come. Vancha, hello from Slovenia. Hello to you. Wonderful. Ariane, not new, but first time live. Thank you for letting me know. Sarah, gee, you look in the peak of health. Must be all that sun and mountain air. I'm happy for you. Yeah, I am getting a little bit, getting kind of the mountainous look. No haircuts, so I'm getting kind of the mountain hermit kind of look. Right? I guess I should start wearing robes and I'll just sit somewhere. God, I'm very uncomfortable. Roberto says, I also feel the other toes of my left foot and my leg kind of weird. Don't worry about it, my friend. Really, don't worry about it. Right? Just keep doing what you're doing. It's absolutely normal for energetic shifts to take when you're making the depth of a transformation that I know you're making. Right? Some of the people here have been here and seen the kind of the ongoing conversation between us, but many here are new. And I know the depth of transformation that's coming about in you. So don't worry when stuff kind of pops here and there. It's perfectly legit. It's actually a symptom of recovery. Yeah. Patricia, hello, Patricia. Wonderful to be sitting with you again, and you. Angelica, hello from Zambia. I'm glad to be here. Zambia, wonderful to have you, Angelica. Fantastic. Several people from Africa. I love seeing that. Ariane, I had oneness experience filled with gratitude and knowing. Anything I thought about manifested within hours. What brought me out of it were fears around having that kind of power and feeling manipulative of the people who literally seem to come out of nowhere to fulfill my desires. Can you speak to this? It's hard being a powerful being, isn't it? Yeah. There are some people that don't have any problem with power because they don't have any conscience. The people who run most of the governments on the planet are of that ilk. The power comes and goes. Don't make a big deal out of it. There'll be times when you just have to think of it and it will happen. Now, remember, you think of something and it happens, and somebody is instrumental in that happening. You have to realize that they too are fulfilling their place. They're doing exactly what they were meant to do. They're participating in the manifestation. Just as, how would you feel, right? If somebody manifests something and you were the vehicle through which it came, you'd feel great. You'd feel fantastic, wonderful. And we begin to see how we're all one. This is one beautiful, enormous, functioning whole. right? Of which we are all, at one moment, you're the main character, another moment you're in a supporting role, but we're all in the same movie, right? And that movie is constantly in flux, constantly in change. So you're not taking anything away from them, right? I mean, if you need somebody, something, or somebody, right? Somebody needs to give it. If not, what happens? No giving, no receiving. It's a flow, right? There has to be a receiver to be a giver, and back and forth. This is the yin yang. It has to work like this, right? But now bear in mind, there could be another time when nothing manifests. I've experienced that plenty of times, when it was just time for the roots to go deeper, right? Yeah, there's a fruit of a seeing, and then suddenly the world around you reflects that seeing that you've taken place. But oftentimes, because we're not used to that inner state of oneness, we want to hold on to the manifesting part, right? Especially if in life that where you've gone without stuff, all of a sudden these things start happening. You think, I've made it. This is it. This is the bliss they talk about. This is great. This is going to be wonderful. And then we hold on to it. The moment you hold on to it, the fear of loss immediately arises. You can't have one without the other. Grasping and resisting are two sides of the same coin. Attachment and aversion, they're two sides of the same coin. Let go of that and keep your attention inside. The manifestation, the effect this has on your life is like the wake of a boat. You're going in a nice, fast, cool boat. There's this wake behind you, right? If it's a speedboat, it's even the rooster tail, right? That's not the purpose of the boat, to make wakes. It's to go somewhere, right? And in fact, if you're in the boat and your attention's all on the wake, you're going to go off course or crash or something. That's a consequence. It's not the objective. The objective is the knowingness. And once you've experienced that knowingness, now notice that even that sense of knowingness and the manifestation that came out of it is itself being perceived by something even more subtle. And that thing that perceives the knowingness and the manifestation is also perceiving the fears and the absence of the manifestation. That hasn't changed. That's you. Right? Don't be seduced by the effect. Stay with the cause. Stay with the essence. Right? Then the thoughts about somebody else fulfilling it or abusing the power, they won't even arise because it's not a power, it's a consequence. The power is the seeing. Right? And notice, this is very, very subtle. So subtle most don't see it. But even that sense of knowing is being seen by something. That thing isn't a thing, which is seeing it cannot be seen. But isn't that you? I mean, aren't you the one looking at the knowing? Aren't you the one that became aware of the manifestations? Aren't you the one that became aware of the questions about it arising? Which are all just simply how the nervous system and the conditioning is reacting to this new experience happening, and all sorts of ideas are coming up. But just take a step back. Is the one who is seeing the bliss and the agony, has that changed? That's you. That's the changeless. We're not interested in creating, nor is it possible to create a permanent static state in manifestation. It's not possible. Manifestation by its nature is a constant flow, a constant flux. Expansion, contraction, constantly. In and out, up and down. It's the play of opposites. There's no manifestation without it. So it will never be stable. It will never be static. But that which is seeing both the up and the down is clearly beyond both, which means it cannot be conceived. And isn't that you? Isn't that where you are looking from? Stay there. Don't worry about what happens out there. It will take care of itself. Sometimes it'll be absolutely dry and nothing's going to happen at all. Now nothing is happening. Sometimes there'll be so much activity and miraculous things happening. Don't be moved by any of it. Don't let identification want to grab on and hold anything. You're not that. You're that which is aware of it. That is the absolute. That is the true being. That's you. Right? So whether you're having a oneness experience or you're having a manyness experience, you remain the same. The real oneness is not an experience. It's the actual substance of being. Thank you for that, Ariane. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Robert, I have a resistance to people telling me what I should do. Usually the idea comes up to fight those ideas. What is happening? How can we accept criticism without taking it personally? Well, what's happening, my friend, is all sort. It started out with this intense anxiety, right? And it's the whole work you're doing is bringing all sorts of things up. Right? The roots of the anxiety and what we experience here, they're multifarious, right? And so you're realizing there's a part of you that doesn't want to accept criticism, right? Oh, wow. Okay. Look at that. Right? Don't try to fix yourself. Don't see it as a personality problem you have to repair, right? Look at it as just another aspect of the conditioning that you got, right? That wants to protect itself, right? That maybe it feels weak. The same thing that in one instance would manifest as anxiety would manifest again as anger. What do you know? Notice it's a different manifestation of the same energy, right? Keep going. You have no idea the stuff that's going to come out of this Pandora's box, but it is a finite box, and it eventually empties. And the only thing left is you. And the real you has no problem accepting criticism. The false you, the egoic sense of identity, does, because it wants to protect itself. It wants to be right. It's afraid of being wrong, right? But you're not wrong. Again, you're always the one aware of it. This is the ace up your sleeve. Right? No matter what happens, you're always the one there aware of it. And that awareness never gets touched. It doesn't get offended. It doesn't resist. Right? It's like your eyes. They don't resist the light, right? The light gets to the eye, it comes in. The mind processing that information resists all sorts of things, but the eye doesn't care. And the eye is just a reflection of that pure awareness. Right? Because by the time you become aware of it, you're already aware of it. It's already in. Right? So now just notice it. It's an aspect of the false personality that is resistant to things. Just look at it. Just notice it. Oh, that's how this system got conditioned. And me, the consciousness that is aware of that conditioning, immediately becomes free of it. It's not you. That doesn't mean it won't come up some more, but when you're no longer identified with it, every time it comes up, it's weaker because it's not getting any juice from you. You've unplugged it. You go, feed me, no food, right? Eventually it doesn't come up at all anymore. And you find this just beautiful equanimity. It's just this calmness. Everything goes by, nothing bothers you. Red Rose for you, another nice name. Question: I understand and relate my value and worth in a spiritual level, but I don't feel like I'm very valuable or worthy among the humans. How do I feel worthy if I'm no big deal to my peers? Well, let's take it apart a little bit, because if you're no big deal to your peers, right, it's relative, right? Maybe you need different peers so they can just, people can enjoy you as you are right now, not as you will be when you get somewhere else, right? But as you are right now. And you know what? Peers change. The attitudes of your peers will change. What they value will change. And one minute you're not valuable, the next minute you are. I go places and I'm not particularly valuable, right? If somebody needed to fix a car, I'm not your man. Or give them a stock tip or something. Nope, I'm not the guy to go to for sure. I am no big deal for that. So don't make this separation between your spiritual value, right, and your human value. That's an artificial distinction. Your spiritual value is your value. It's your inherent value. The spiritual is simply the substance of which appears as the human. They're not two. There's not this state of spiritual value and perfection and all that, and then there's this human mess, right? I've fallen into sin, as it were. That doesn't exist. The human is the spiritual made manifest. So what is the quality of spirit? Love, compassion, that the perfume of your true being. Now that's real and true whether anybody recognizes it or not. Christ, which we now recognize as one of the most magnificent human beings who ever lived, right, was not recognized in his day. Buddha had tens of thousands of followers. He was recognized in his day. Christ was not. He appeared in a very different culture. If he'd appeared in India, he would have had tens of thousands of followers like Buddha did, because that was a culture that said, yeah, wow, he's a sage. He's a guru. And they put garlands on him and the whole deal. But in the world he appeared, which was not that different from the one we do, Rome and in the Jewish tradition, he wasn't recognized at all. He even said a prophet is not without honor except within his own country and among his own people, right? So oftentimes they just can't see you. Sometimes your family can't see you. Most of the time your family can't really see you. If your family really saw you, none of us would have ever been traumatized, right? We have never felt that existential threat. So your value is you, right? Value is not acquired. It's the world. Your value is your acquired skills, what you can sell in the marketplace and how much you can get, right? And you can see how absolutely unstable that is, right? There was a time when there was a shortage of lawyers. The population was growing, and need more lawyers, right? So all the schools were trying to get all the kids with certain SAT scores into law school. They did. Then there was a glut of lawyers. There were so many lawyers, didn't know what to do with them. And the guy that used to be, the guy in town, made a lot of money and all that sort of stuff, was now just scraping by. Same thing happened with programmers, computer programmers. I started programming a long time ago, and there wasn't even a computer science degree at the time. Everybody I knew learned it from in some other skill, and I was a musician, right? But the demand got so high for it, as more and more things became computerized, all the schools were pumping, every kid with a little bit of a scientific aptitude was being pushed into these programs. All of a sudden comes 2000 with the dot-bomb. Some kid who was getting $100,000 a year right out of college is now living in his mother's basement. The whole thing collapsed. And now the market is, they only need this many, and there's a gazillion of them available. So that's market value. That's how culture evaluates you. That's what your worth is. Your worth isn't inherent, right? Spiritual value is inherent. You are you. There can be a million people doing the job, but none of them will do it like you do, even if it's exactly the same job. You have an individual energetic signature that is simply you. So drop the idea of that is in your mind that you're not a big deal to them. Drop the desire to be a big deal with them. Notice that it's just something inside of you wants to be acknowledged, right? But I'm helping you to acknowledge it for yourself, which means you won't be dependent upon them to acknowledge it. And when you're not dependent upon them to acknowledgement, your natural big dealness can just be there, and they'll either see it or not. And if they do, your friends, your peers will go to a new level of intimacy. If they don't, believe me, they'll fall away and others will, because you'll be you, right? Your job is to be you, right? Period. And end of story. And then let the world deal with you as you are. Big things I see, problems I see in the world that is just compounded in really in an ongoing totalitarianism, totalitarian tiptoe, is this drive to make everybody the same, to turn you into a cog. Our school systems, our education, everything about it is to prepare you to simply be a cog in the wheel of the economic system. You're not, right? What the world really needs is a bunch of people who are not cogs, who are themselves, whether that fits or not. If it doesn't fit, tough, we'll make something else. We'll make a place where it does fit. This will transform the world. Your value is real, whether they recognize it or not, but you have to recognize it. Once you recognize it, their opinion won't matter anymore, and you will be free of them. And then you'll also shift the dynamic, because if you're walking around thinking, I don't really feel worthy, I'm no big deal to them, you're quite literally bringing that into your experience. You're believing it into existence, right? They might not feel that way, actually, right? But if you're feeling strongly that way, our perception will tend to filter out but what contradicts that and amplify what does. And so you'll hear them say something and you will think, oh, it's demeaning to me, when it wasn't, right? It was an interpretation you put on it. So be really clear. Don't put yourself in that little box of saying, right, you are worthy. Why? Because you are. There are no, you're not a mistake. You are this form at this time, at this particular place, this moment in history, because you are absolutely essential. So, and a red rose back to you as well. Danny Vargas, hello GP. I am not at peace. I assume that to be at peace, you need that knowing that you are not the mind, feeling, body sensation. How can I see this in my own experience? Yes, that is how you come to peace, because there's no peace in the mind. There's no peace in the emotions. There's no peace in sensation, right? There isn't, right? There can be a calm. There can be a momentary calm, right? But the ocean isn't always calm, right? Sometimes the storms are absolutely torrential. But at the depth of the ocean, it's absolutely still, isn't it? So it is all, you cannot, this is the mistake all sorts of different spiritual and religious traditions make, trying to make experience be peaceful. You can't do it. Nobody can do it. Buddha couldn't do it, right? You cannot control the flux of life, right? It has to go like this, sometimes very gently, sometimes very violently, but it has to. That's its nature. So once you understand that, you'll let go of trying to control circumstances in order to bring about peace. And that includes thoughts. You don't have to control them, right? I'm going to control my thoughts. This isn't, non-dual inquiry is not a yogic technique for getting into samadhi where thought stops. Because if it's just a technique, the moment you step out of the technique, the thought starts again, right? It's understanding the relationship, what's you and what's thought. And when you see thought as thought, and that it isn't you, and it doesn't matter to you whether the thought is turbulent or peaceful, you're free of it. Now, paradoxically, when you're free of it, it tends to calm down because it's not getting the same kind of energy feedback. It's not getting fed the same kind of food. So it does tend to calm down because it doesn't get any reaction out of you. So, yes, really take this spiritual inquiry deeply seriously. And I don't mean seriously. I mean like take it to heart. Become genuinely curious in this, and remember that the object of spiritual inquiry is not to get peaceful. It's not to get enlightened. It's to know who you are, whatever that might be. Right? And whatever results from that, whatever consequences happen because of that discovery, fine. If it's total peace and sublimity and everything, great. If it's chaos everywhere, also great. You know the truth. This is about who am I? Not about what I get when I discover who I am, but about who I am. Oftentimes our spiritual pursuits are like a lot of people are really interested. They really want to go to heaven, but they don't want to know God, right? They want the fruit, right? They don't want the tree, right? Right? Oh, I can't wait to get to heaven. Well, what about God? I mean, they almost kill God, right? It's all about the heaven. It's what God's going to do for me, right? Oh, I'm going to have this wonderful time. Would they still be as devoted to God if they were just kind of going to end up in like Omaha or something? Some really uninteresting place. Would they still have the same kind of enthusiasm? I don't think so. Right? This is about knowing the truth, which is what God is. God is just the word for the truth, the ultimate truth, and the ultimate truth of you. Who are you really? Now, you already have a sense that you're not the mind because you can look at thought, right? And thought comes and goes. And if you were thought, that is the mind, if it went, you'd go too, but you don't. So obviously, you're something other than that. Same with the emotions, same with the sensations. And now that's established. Now, forget about those now and just try to keep bringing your attention back to who am I then? What is it that is aware of thought, emotion, and sensation? That is experience. I can't experience me. Every time I think I do, oh no, that's another experience. That's one of emotion, thought, or sensation. And I'm none of those things. So all experience has to be put to the side. I can't know myself through experience. Something else has to happen here. I'm going to have to go someplace else. And you just keep doing that with enormous curiosity, an enormous interest, right? and an enormous desire to be free, which is to know who you really are without anything extra added. And just let that ferment in you. Let it just kind of take you over. At first, you'll find your mind is constantly going back to some kind of object, and you go, oh, it's another object. What's me? What's me? What's me? You just keep coming back to that place. Recognize you can't actually see it. The knowing of who you are will not be an intellectual knowing. It'll be a direct perception. But it's not even a perception because there's not two there. Muji calls it a non-phenomenal recognition, which is a great way to put it. What's there? Just me. Me and nothing else. Nothing but myself. Right? Not as anything, just myself. No thoughts, no emotions, no sensations, no definitions. just me, pure me, just being, pure being. Does that help you, Danny? Beautiful. Roberto, thanks, GP. I am really afraid of getting sick. Not only virus, but something else that has to do with blood system, brain. It feels very strange. Yeah, my friend. All this stuff is coming up now, right? You've been suppressing it for a long time, right? And the whole pandemic thing was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just it was all in there. And the moment you began to see that it wasn't really about this, that something deeper was projecting on that, this whole door opened, right? And you're in a completely different territory. Keep going. Yes, all sorts of strange things can come up. Remember, this internal world of what I call energetic assumptions, right, is not rational. It's all got put into place long before we could sort it out with our minds and put in little boxes and categories and the like. It's not rational at all. So it's going to be very strange. Images and pictures and all sorts of things will happen, and all sorts of fear, right? As you're beginning to realize that it is just fear without an object, you'll see how it's constantly trying to attach to an object. It's an existential fear that happened when you were very, very young. And so, and because that it doesn't really have an object, it latches on to some, oh, I'm afraid of that. Oh, I'm afraid of that. No, you're not. You're not. It has nothing to do with that. It is the fear that arises when identification with the separate self happens. When that first sense of I'm separate arises, it identifies with the body immediately. And the very first thing it feels is the fear of death and the fear of lack. Thump. And that becomes the underpinning of the entire egoic mind. And this is even before the egoic mind has developed. So keep going. Don't let your mind attach that feeling of fear to anything because it doesn't belong there. That's a projection. Stay with the feeling, and the Red Sea will eventually part, and you'll find it's quite nice on the other side. Jay, when I just sit down, my mind tells me I should do something, or it might be thinking of the past. Something that process gets distracted with external events, like somebody asking me something. In the middle of all this, I'm trying to center myself, and I'm aware of all this. It's like being in a messy room. Yeah, it is, and it's going to happen. Oh wow! Is the attention relaxing in the essence true centering? It is a messy room. And don't be surprised if it takes a while to clean the room. Okay, when that taste happens and there's a little sense of freedom, and your life begins to be directed towards this kind of inquiry, all the other stuff's going to come up. All the old habits, the patterns, the conditioning is all going to come up to try to pull you back into the way you have been. So yeah, you'll sit down, and all of a sudden you won't be able to think. You simply won't be able to think, right? Even to think, okay, I'm the one observing this thinking. You won't be able to think that. Don't worry. Don't make a story out of it. If you make a big deal, oh my God, I'm not getting it. What are you doing, right? You're just feeding it. You're feeding it good, nutritious, wholesome, organic, non-GMO food, right? So instead, just go, okay, every single thought is confused. I can't hold my attention on anything whatsoever. To whom is this appearing? To whom is this appearing? And just calmly take that position, the position you're actually always in, the one of the witness, right? And just keep consciously going back there. Even if you get distracted and it's 2 days later, you realize you were distracted, go, oh, okay, but I just realized it. Boom. The clouds just parted. Here I am. Boom, I'm back. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep my attention here. Attention can be like an unruly dog, right? Right? Until it's well trained. So this let me make sure I got the rest of it. Um, in the midst of all this, I'm trying to center myself. Yes. So don't try to center yourself. Recognize that you're the center, right? If you try, right, to center yourself, you've already put yourself outside of the center and somehow you're trying to get back. Well, you can't do that because you are the center. You can't get back to you, right? I can't ask you to get up and walk over to yourself. You're already there, right? Having never left the house, you're asking for the way home. You are the center. That is the absolute truth to be discovered. The mind keeps looking for the center. And when there's a feeling in the body of being totally distracted and discombobulated, the mind says, where's the center? Where's the center? The center is that which is looking at the mind that's all discombobulated. And if you just patiently and gently keep staying there, which means recognizing that this is where you always are, you won't fight with the mind. That's a battle you can't win. You will simply withdraw from battle. And if you're not in battle with it, it has no energy. It has no need for defense. It just gets completely sapped. And there'll be sometimes when you're so clear, you think, this is it, I've made it. And then a day later, it'll be total chaos in the head. Don't worry about it. Don't create a story about it. Don't turn it into anything that it isn't. This is just simply the antics of the mind. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's not. But you are always this peaceful stillness in front of which the calm and the storm both appear. The sense of identity, the sense of I, keeps moving back towards its actual source, keeps recognizing its source as the actual enlightened absolute witness. Right? So you don't attain awakeness, you are awakeness. Right? Are you not awake? You're aware. Just notice, my mind's in complete chaos and I'm aware of it. Right? My body is, and I'm aware of it. Right? I'm aware of everything. I am awareness. I'm never not aware. And there's not even an I that's aware. There's just awareness. And that's what I am. Right? And then don't worry about what the mind does. It's nothing. Right? Make it nothing. Oh, it's a big deal. You've just made it something, haven't you? It's nothing. It really is nothing. It's a cartoon. It's an animated feature, right? There's nothing there. There's nobody upset. There's nothing no. It's completely an image in the mind. It has no substance to it. And you'll see through it quickly too. It's great. Kamal in India. Hello, Kamal. So good to see you. Sophie. Hello, Sophie. Take a little sip here. My now completely watered down iced coffee. It's been almost 100 here every day for the last few days. Hence I look like the red mountain man now, right? Sophie, dear GP, dear Sophie, I'm really struggling with making a decision about selling my home. I keep messing around with price and get into state about not knowing what to do. Yet I can never know what to do. Help. Okay. One of the most difficult things for human beings to deal with is not knowing what to do. And in that space is fear of making a mistake, fear of being taken advantage of, fear of selling yourself short. That gap of unknowing, which is just a big empty gap, is a beautiful canvas for all of our deep fears to project themselves onto. So here's this. I'm really struggling with making a decision about selling my home. Right. Now, there's a decision that needs to be made about selling your home. And then there's your reaction to it. The decision is simple. It's innocent. It's neutral, right? It's going to go one way or the other. Sell, not sell. Sell, what price? That's it. That's all that's happening, right? Now look at it very clearly. That is the only thing that's happening. It's kind of like watching a football game or a baseball game, right? When it's over, there's a score, right? 3-2. Okay. And yet you'll have hundreds of pundits and sports announcers analyzing it every time. This because of this and this and this and this. All the stories are different. Every fan's going to have a different story. But all of those are made up. The only thing that's actually real is 3-2. Somebody won, somebody lost. Right? The only thing happening here is, in this moment, there's a feeling of needing to decide whether you're going to sell your house or not. And just isolate that all by itself. And now, what arises then is all of the old patterns and habits that, like I outlined before, should I do it? What's the right price? Am I going to take advantage of? Am I underselling myself, undercutting myself? What if I can't sell it? Right? All of those thoughts, right? If you entertain them, will keep you spinning on that hamster wheel forever. So that's the struggle. The decision isn't a struggle. That's the struggle. Right? So what if you're just, this is easy. When the decision, when it's time for the decision to arise, it'll be there. And look really, really closely, right? Everybody here, look at some point in your life when a decision was made, an important one or a not so important one, when a decision was made. Trace it all the way back. What happened? Did you make a decision, or did a deciding thought simply appear? Go all the way back to that deciding thought. I'm going to go that way. And then all the energy that lined up behind it. Right? And look right before that. Were you there? Deciding charts on the wall and stuff? No, you weren't. It just happened. There is a deciding, but there's no decider. The deciding just happens. Excuse me. I hope I didn't blast anybody's eardrums. There's no decider. There's choice, but there's no chooser. There's just a choosing thought. And so the deciding thought arises, and 2, 3, 4 thoughts later is, I decided that, which is just another thought, which is the ego taking credit for what it never did. And that's what it does. The decision just happens. And when it just happens, then that habit of energy we call the ego jumps in to take credit for it. I did that. I like to use the analogy. Actually, got it from Francis Lucille of the circus clown. Right, the acrobats will be doing some wonderful death-defying feat with no net below. Right, it's extraordinary. The crowd jumps to its feet to applaud, and the circus clowns come running out and take the bow. They had nothing to do with it. Right, the ego has nothing to do with decision making. Right, the decisions all come from yourself, from inside, and that means they're never wrong. They may not go in the direction your ego thinks they should go, and you go, oh, I made the wrong decision. There's no such thing. The universe does not make a mistake, right? Down to the tiniest little choice that's made, right? It's not a mistake. Can't be, right? And so stop telling yourself, I can never know what to do. It's simply not true. There's been plenty of times in your life when you have, right? Right now, you don't have an answer. That's it. That's the only thing that's going on. So just cherish that, right? Don't put any pressure on you, because there isn't. Oh, you got to decide by this date. Or maybe some real estate agent is going to say, you got to decide by this date. No, you don't. No, you don't. The decision will be made when it's time, right? When it's perfectly timed, right? So stop telling yourself, I can never know what to do. That's not true, right? That I that doesn't know what to do isn't you. It's a thought. And there's not even an I there. It's just a thought. Right? It's a thought that thinks there's somebody who has to make this decision, and the decisions just don't arise from the great heart of being, which is nothing but benevolent love, and always makes the right choice, and always brings you to the next place you need to be. So just be with it. As you're sitting there on a very practical level, you're sitting there thinking about the price. Just kind of the different prices to mind, with no attachment to any of them. Right? At first, oh, too low, I won't get enough money. Just put that aside, that thought out. So, it's too much, I won't get it. Oh, there won't be any bids at all. Right? Put all that aside and just sit with the numbers by themselves. Just feel the number. And feel that number with no agenda whatsoever. And believe me, it'll simply go, boink, this is the right way. And you'll learn a way of making decisions that will bless you for the rest of your life, right? You cannot make a wrong decision. It's not possible. The very act of you making it makes it the right decision. When asked what destiny was, Nisargadatta made the most brilliant response I've ever heard. He said, destiny is what happens. Thank you, Sophie. I hope that was helpful to you. Mary says, thank you, GP. I know how habitual this habit is and how it grabs, and yes, it wants me to be something better than I am now. Right. Which means the image of who you are now, not you. You can't get any better. How can you get any better than infinite love? How can you get any bigger? You can't. So the image we hold of ourselves, being inadequate, of course, inspires in us this desire to be better, which we simply misinterpret. What it really means is, I want to be free of what I'm not. Yeah, right? And that's a lot better than what I thought I was. What I am is so much better than what I thought I was. Thank God. Tusquatu, namaste to you. Billy Boy, hello GP, for Florida and many hugs. UG Krishnamurti called what seemed to be a Satori experience a calamity, saying that he even went through physical changes because of it. Any insight? Yeah, UG Krishnamurti's character, pretty volatile and cutting, but quite delightful as well. But yeah, he would use a term like Satori is a calamity, right? I wouldn't put it like that. I would just say that it's a temporary state, and like everything else, it comes and goes, and therefore, it's not the real thing. As simple as that. If you get really stuck in that, and some people do, right? They're so locked in, they're going to have their Kundalini experience, right? Or they're going to have Satori, right? And not actually see them as experiences. They haven't gone to the level of true non-duality, right? So they're mistaking a state, a very advanced state, a very powerful state, as being the ultimate. That is a calamity, because you can get stuck there. The seeking and attaining of city powers. City powers mean those miraculous powers, of healing, walking on water, flying, levitating, and things like that can be so seductive that you think you have arrived, when in fact you've got a more difficult ego to see through than the one who's just humbly praying to God for forgiveness. Because it, in a very subtle way, enhances the sense of a separate self. I have achieved Satori, right? True Satori is you're not there anymore. You're gone. Right? It is the experience without objects, but it's not the ultimate. The ultimate is the recognition that all states come and go, and you're not a state. And so it is not something that can be realized in the sense of an experience that can be had or an insight that can be had. It is when all of those are gone and there's nothing left but you. It is so nothing left but you. Only you. Right? Just you. Right? Not as anything else. Just you. Not an experience or an experiencer. Just you. You are. Nothing else. You just are. So is that sufficient insight for you? The same thing is true of the Kundalini rising. People want to have the Kundalini awakening, and what that is an experience. It's a release of a very powerful energy, and for most people, it wreaks havoc in their lives because they haven't developed the character. They've put all their eggs in that basket, right? And it's taken them over. It's like conjuring up the devil and then you expect him to behave. I mean, he's not going to, right? It's the cart before the horse. And it arises out of this grand mistake that awakening is an experience, that it's some kind of altered state, some kind of super consciousness or super duper consciousness, right? Or something totally beyond all things, right? It is totally beyond, which means it's not an experience at all. It cannot be experienced. You can't experience yourself. You just are yourself. It is the simplest of the simple. So and real Advaita gets it. Zen gets it. That's the only other places I've actually seen it. The if you've ever seen the 10 ox herding pictures, which is a very famous series of 10 pictures in Zen, and there's no captions to them, they're just the pictures. And it's the ox herder who loses the ox. And the whole thing is about him finding the ox. Of course, the ox means enlightenment, true awakening. And then he finally finds it. First he sees ruffles in the bushes, then he sees some droppings, then he catches a bit of the tail, and then it finally gets the whole thing. He gets it, and he rides it back home. And the last scene is he's just sitting in the window looking out the window. Right? The meaning is beautiful. This is it. This is it. Right? It's not something special. Experience comes and goes. Your experience may be really dramatic and wonderful, or it may be very ordinary. Who cares? The experiencer is the same. And the experiencer cannot be experienced. So even Satori or a Kundalini rising is just an experience. It's not the truth. And so when we stop seeking experiences or altered states, which is kind of hard for some people to do, hard to let that go. They want to have that extra special, super duper thingy. But when you do, it just settles into this, oh, I'm already that. And this is just what happens to be happening now. And it may continue to happen like this. It may not. It could end tomorrow and then something else happens. But I remain as I am. I never move. Let's see. Mary, you're the only teacher that can speak of spirituality and not trigger old religious beliefs in me that others do where I get emotionally upset. Well, good. 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 We all have those old religious beliefs in us. We're, most of us, the vast majority of us, were raised with just some kind of a religion which was mostly just cultural rules in the form, a religious experience takes place. Somebody truly has an awakening to who they are, and then it gets watered down and turned into rules, and it ends up serving the culture which wants to perpetuate itself rather than serving the individual discovering truth. That's what happened to Christianity in the Roman Empire. Christianity got completely perverted, right? And those now are TV preachers, and most all of them I hear, the fundamentalists, it's blasphemy. It's heresy. It is the empire. Right? So understanding that, though, you can see how it works, how we get easily sucked into it, how our need to find safety, just it feeds right into that. So, but I'm glad I can speak about spirituality in such terms that it doesn't trigger those old beliefs, because at the heart of every religion is truth, is this recognition. So P.S. says hello. Anne says, how do I get on live chat? Anne, you are on live chat. I'm right. If you're on Facebook, oh no, I don't do Facebook. That's right. I only do Facebook for the meditations. I only do this on YouTube. So I'm not exactly sure because you are chatting. Maybe you're not seeing everything. I'm not sure. Anyway, Mary, I find, GP, that I was so indoctrinated with Christianity that I tend to overlay it on all spiritual teachings, which tend to hinder seeing differently. But you're not getting hindered because you're seeing that it's overlaying, right? Now seeing it, stay where you are. Stay in the position that you're actually looking from, right? Don't turn it into a problem when it isn't. You're already seeing it. So the problem's half gone, right? So now you're just seeing it. And if you see it, you'll notice the mind doing it. And by noticing that it's doing it, you'll be withdrawing power from it. You'll automatically be directing the attention to take in something else, which it eventually will. And all of those things will fall away. So not to be worried about it. Bill B. I attended GP's residential retreat at KECC in 2018, and I got so much out of it. Highly recommended. Bill B. I'm trying to remember which one you were. I can't see your picture very well. Yes, that's right. Oh, that was such a great time. I so was looking forward to doing that again. And I actually wanted them to do it for like 5 hours on each day, but I couldn't talk them into it. They just wanted to do 2 hours. I mean, this is the first time at the Krishnamurti Center that they've done online stuff. They haven't. It's all been live. So they're totally new to this. They don't know how to do it. Mary says, the price for the retreat in American money or Canadian? It's 100 Canadian. So it's less. It's actually less in US. And I think even less in Europe right now, because I think the pound and the euro are both very strong against the dollar. So it's probably pocket change for you guys. Hendrik, hello, Hendrik in Germany. Good to see you. Good to see you. And thanks for the recommendation, Bill. Which reminds me, I should put it up again because they've asked me to help promote it. So we can get a nice group of people in there, because it's really good stuff, and it's such an important thing that there are actually institutions with grounds, beautiful grounds overlooking the ocean. I mean, it's just a beautiful place, that are dedicated to having this kind of a conversation going on. So please support them. support this. Ariane, everything you speak about resonates deeply. It is like everybody I had ever hoped was true. Everything I had ever hoped was true. How to embody this? There's a fear of, what if you die and find out it wasn't true? Christian stuff. Well, here's the deal. The only way you can find out it isn't true is if you find out what is. Right? Now, that's not the problem. The problem is that the Roman Empire put a timeout on it, right? The football game only goes 60 minutes, right? This is it. At the end, it's over. This is where you have your chance. That was to control people. That's the whole intention of it. It's still the intention of it. It's still what they're doing from the pulpit, and they're still cooperating with empire. You don't hear any of these TV preachers criticizing war, do you? They are tools of empire. They're not Christian. It's heresy, and it should be called out for that. I'm sorry, Christ did not come here to make us all rich and to go take over other countries. Right? That it's heresy, and I don't mind saying that. So you simply have to be willing, recognize that this quite diabolical influence was programmed into the nervous system that makes you fear God and this judgment eventually that's going to happen. Right? Now, what's really fascinating about this, if I can wax eloquent about the Christian theology itself, according to the New Testament, the only unforgivable sin there is the sin against the Holy Spirit. Now, what's the sin against the Holy Spirit? What's the Holy Spirit? Right? The direct experience of God. Right? No intercessor, no theology, no ideology, your direct experience of God. That's the Holy Spirit. Right? That's the word for it. It's enlightenment. It's awakening. It's finding that you and God are one. That is the Holy Spirit. Everything they teach is to don't think, don't question, believe. This is what it has to be. Don't even allow a thought in. That's the devil. I mean, the whole, it's amazing. According to that Christian theology, God created man so that he could have a relationship with him. And then he wants to keep him utterly stupid and ignorant. He simply has to believe. Well, what kind of a relationship is that of a subordinate child? If he wants a real intimate relationship, wants an equal, wants a partner, wants somebody to feel what he feels, knows what he knows. The way all of us want that kind of an intimacy. So the complete contradiction. I don't want you to think just believe. That's what God demands, right? But he loves you. Send you to hell, but he loves you. Right? So it's not enough to just see that on the level of insight and intellect, because it doesn't take much to pull out. It's a whole house of cards that it rests on, and it rests on greed for the most part, greed and a lust for power. Four horsemen of the apocalypse: greed, war, death, and what was one more? I forgot about it. But anyway, I digress. There will be an energy that will come up that will be afraid, because it's been programmed into you. That's how you're controlled, right? So when that energy of fear comes up, I want you to sit with it. Don't run away. What should I be thinking? You don't have to think anything. Stay with that fear. As a matter of fact, that's the fear of God, the fear of the truth. All you want to know is the truth. If that was the truth, right? Eternal punishment or reward, well, that's the truth. I want to know it. If that's the truth, I want to know it, right? If it's not the truth, I want to know that too. And with that heart, that's the Holy Spirit. That you cannot put down. Nobody has the right to put that down. To say, I want to know if this is really true, right? Not because somebody told it, not because it's written in a book. God can tell me. He doesn't need an agent. He doesn't need a press secretary or spokesperson. Right? He can speak to me. I'm right here. You're everywhere. Must be pretty easy. And just take that fear and say, what's the truth? And lay it up on the altar with utter courage, right? And just let go of the doubt. And it will just collapse. God is love. Nothing but love. Love, 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 and more love. There's the hell means the oblivion for the faults. The punishment, the punishment is not the punishing of you eternally. Eternity represents the bottomless pit is the lie, the falsity, the egoic mind, and all of his angels, which is all the thoughts and beliefs and assumptions that go with it, are cast into the bottomless pit and sealed over, where they will just oblivion. It's it is the it is the true end. It is the true death and resurrection. Oh, I could go on this, but this all day, especially with my unapologetic criticism of modern Christianity. So, does that help, Ariane? Hendrik, is all that is perceived sensations that seem to make a me nothing else than sensation of perceiving subtle bodies? However close it seems, it's just a perception without anybody feeling. Yep, exactly so. There's not even a me. There's just these subtle bodies, subtle forms. And they're not even making up a me. There's no self there. It's just a form. The self is projected on it. By what? By the self. You really are a self. You really are a me. And that selfness or me-ness projects itself on a form and then believes that form is me. Right? It's just sensation. That's all there is. Sensation without a body. And you see, perception is actually just perception without a body or sensation. And the objects of mind are just objects of mind without a body, sensation, or perceptions. And eventually it all just folds into this consciousness and everything arising in consciousness. And that's you. There's nothing left but you, consciousness. And the modulations and appearances, what we call subtle bodies, which are simply modulations or vibrations of consciousness. No self. There's nobody there. There's no person. There's no being. There's no sentience. There's just consciousness. Just you. Beautiful question. Thank you, Hendrik. Oh, that is so exciting when I see people getting that depth of insight. Wonderful. No matter how close it seems, it's just a perception. Because close, horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Close is close. It doesn't matter how intimate it gets, there's still two. You are not close. That's why you can't perceive yourself. You can't see yourself from a distance of 0. You cannot perceive you. You cannot get close to you. Right? No matter how close something gets, it isn't you. You can't get close to you. You simply are you. Mary, Barb is here by phone listening from Tonawanda, New York. She loves you too. Thank you. Hi, Barb. Great to have you. Jay says, can you pay for the retreat while it's going on? I'm not sure if I'll get all those days off. You'd go to the link and all the information's there. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not handling any of that side of it. When it's all done, they'll give me a little something for the effort in Canadian dollars. So check. You can send an email to the director. Ralph is the director of it, and they'll be able to answer all those questions. I don't have those answers. So, Georgia B in London, sending love to you. Thank you. Tatjana, where'd you go? Oops. It jumps around. I managed to hear this beautiful sentence. I just joined, as I have different and regular commitments that end at 4 Eastern. Oh, sorry. So moving the time wasn't so good for you as it was for all my friends in Europe. Sorry about that, Tatjana. What beautiful sentence did you hear? Did you say? Oh, when we ask for forgiveness, who we are actually asking to forgive us. Ah, yeah, beautiful. When we ask for forgiveness, who we are actually asking to forgive us. Yes, who you really are is what we call God. the ultimate love, the total forgiving, who's got nothing against anyone. The idea of the wrath of God is so absurd. We're talking about God, right? How do you defend infinitely powerful being? I mean, it's nonsense. It's such a personal view of it. And forgiveness simply means to be found in that original innocence. The you thought you were isn't you. Boom. That's forgiveness. And realizing who you actually are with nothing to forgive, that's real forgiveness. The original innocence. There was never anyone there who had to be forgiven. They vanish. Poof. Let's see. John says, I can't attend the retreat. Will it be possible to purchase a recording? I do believe recordings will be available. I'll check on that with Ralph. Yeah, again, check the page out. They may have something there. I don't see any why not. It'll be done on Zoom. It's on automatically. So I'll talk to. I'm pretty sure it will be. If not, I'll try to talk him into it. Mary says, good question. Teresa, wonderful satsang. Love your humor. Great clarity being received here. Thanks. Great. Fantastic. We like clarity, but don't hold on to it. Remember that who you are is beyond all opposites, right? So you are beyond clarity and confusion, which is infinite clarity, which is just perfect stillness, right? Which is crystal clarity, but is not a clarity just of the way the mind happens to be behaving in the moment. It is just that infinite clarity of space, the infinite, just perfect, still silence. So yes, and that is what takes thought and clarifies it, removes all of the confusion and clarifies the thought. When you're not holding on to the clear thought and your attention is that which is holding the thought, that clarity becomes more and more permanent. Right? Confusion just doesn't arise. Right? But you're not trying to hold on to clear thinking. You're simply being yourself, and it's doing the holding. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Beautiful. Mary, Roberto, I feel all our fears, especially the fear of death, is arising in all of us. You're not alone, my friend. Yes, no, it is. It's fundamental. It's fundamental. The moment you think you're a separate self, the fear arises. Remember in the Garden of Eden, a mythological story, it didn't really happen. Okay. When they ate of the fruit of the knowledge of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the first thing they felt was fear and shame. I was afraid. I was ashamed. Right? I was afraid of you. That's what they felt. When you eat that first taste of the sense of a separate self, that's the fall. Identification with the body, and immediately fear of death, fear of lack, and shame. You're ashamed of who you are, right? Because you're not who you are anymore. You've just fallen into the idea that you are something other than you are. Angelica says, thank you. I'm always struggling with centering myself. Good. Don't center yourself. See that you're always centered. You are the center, right? Where else? Every experience you have, right? Thought, to whom does it report? To you. Emotion, great emotion, ecstasy, bliss, agony and grief. Where's it report? Right back to center. All sensations. What's monitoring them? To whom are they reporting? You. Where are you? You are the center. You can't get out of it. You can't step over here and see thoughts talking to somebody else, can you? It's always you. You are the center. I sometimes just refer to it, I refer to it as the light at the center. But it is the center that's everywhere, and it has no circumference. It isn't in space or time. It has no dimensions. Right? And it's you. Just notice that everything reports to you. Right? You are the central hub of all experience. Kind of like the chairman of the board. It all reports to you. Jay, thank you, G. Danny Vargas' question actually answered it and cleared it more when you got to my question. Non-duality sure is walking a double-edged sword. walk carefully and wear shoes. Don't walk that one barefoot. Yeah. Non-duality is just very subtle, and it's not taught very well because it's not understood very well. Believe me, I didn't understand it all that well. I had mixed up with all sorts of stuff for quite a while, but again, it was Nisargadatta that started that path, and Zen, and really the first complete wiping away and clarity of it was Zen when I realized it was this. Up to that point, I had been looking for some position that was truth, right? And I realized, wait a minute, I am that, and I'm not a position. And that was when the whole thing, position just flowing from one thing to another, and I was none of that. I was nothing perceivable or conceivable. And that was finally the open door that led to that kind of consistent wisdom. Mary says, yes, I want to be free of what I am not. I feel your great love, compassion, and patience in these satsangs, and I'm thankfully crying, right? I want to be free from what I'm not, yes. Now, look very closely. Who's the one trying to be free from what she's not? Look very closely. It's very subtle. It's true, right? I mean, it's the seeking part. We all have to go through that seeking. That feeling, how do I get free? But I'm pushing you a step beyond now. It's time to let go of that. Even the desire to be free of what you're not is being seen by the ultimate freedom. That which is seeing is already free. It's so free, it can see freedom and bondage. Fine. Total freedom beyond all opposites. Right? Seeing the one who wants to be free. It's funny, isn't it? When you actually see it, we go, whoa, I get it. Daryl says, isn't purpose is what's happening as well? Absolutely. Yeah, the higher understanding of it, it's simply what's happening. Destiny, purpose, they're simply what is happening. Right? After the fact, we go, oh, that was really great, and it needed to be that way, but it didn't. No, if something else had happened, we would have thought it needed to be that way. So, yeah, purpose is just beautifully what is what you are. It's this moment as it is, doing what it's doing, fulfilling what it's fulfilling. It's what it is. So yes, Daryl, you're absolutely right. Russell in Durban, South Africa. Boy, I think I got 4 people from Africa here today. Wonderful. Mary, I would love for you to do a course on religious indoctrinations and how to see through the isms of it. I'm about to re-release a course I did 2 years ago, now 2-3 years ago, called The Christian Mystic. And I'm adding some things, some new things to it, which I think will help, because that's really what it's about. It's the mystic tradition versus the empire, basically, which in Judaism, Kabbalah survived, although it too has been quite watered down. In Islam, Sufi survived, which is its mystic tradition. But Christianity, because of its just primitive people and the Roman Empire, the mystic strain was almost completely wiped out. Burned at the stake, and I mean the unthinkable cruelty. But it is the mystic. Christ was a mystic. The disciples became mystics. That is, they accepted their direct experience as the truth. That's what makes a mystic. My experience tells me the truth. God is quite capable of making me know the truth. I don't need an intermediary. And if what God tells me contradicts what your book says, I'm not believing your book. Sorry. That's revolutionary. That's radical. That undercuts everything. That's why mystics are so damn dangerous, right? Because they undermine empirical authority. They undermine the cultural structure, and they should, right? The story of the prophet, I can't remember which prophet it was, when David had basically raped Bathsheba, and then had her husband killed, so he could marry her, and the king's sins, of course, mythologically, it's all myth. The king's sins get reflected in the kingdom, and so they're going through a drought, and all these terrible things are happening, and the prophet comes to him and says, I know what the problem is that we're having. I know why God is punishing us. And David says, tell me, and I'll see to it. And he goes, you're the reason, right? And the guards went to jump on him, and David says, don't. He's right. He was willing to admit it. If some of our politicians could admit it, we might actually make some progress. He was admitted. He put himself through, gave himself lashes. He wore the burlap bag, went naked outside, actually publicly confessed his sin. That's the job of the mystic. You're the problem. That's courage. Right into the temple. He was allowed in the temple because he was recognized as a prophet. But great story. I don't know how I got off on that story, but Bible stories, I guess, today, huh? Bible stories today, kiddies. Dave in Philly, namaste to you, sir. Oh, my God, the questions keep coming. Librarians, can you put a link for training in chat? Is unable to get off of program? Training? I'm not sure what you mean, Anne. You mean the EFT training that I'm going to be doing? I'm not sure what you mean. I'll make sure I answer before it's over. I could take this banner off now, I guess. Yeah. Yes, maybe the EFT training I'm going to be doing. Not sure. Anyway, Mary's totally on board with Ariana. Ariana says, "Wow, just wow! Thank you so much. Much love to you." Oh, great. Please do a workshop on the subject GP. I feel so many of us are suffering because of this indoctrination. Actually, when I did it 3 years ago, I had more people in that class than I had in any other class. So I guess it is time to do it. I'll re-release the old material, and then I'll do some new stuff for it, and I'll do a live for it as well. Yeah. So yeah, to become free of that. To become free of it is to actually allow the real depth of blessing and love that is in the book really shine. And then blessed are the peacemakers won't mean armed people. It'll mean people who really do see God. Hendrik says, thank you for your reply. Very supporting. Great. Tatiana, thank you for your answer about forgiveness. I had recently a discussion about that didn't go anywhere. Well, discussions will go somewhere or not go somewhere, depending on who you're talking to. Because, what I just said about forgiveness, I will be labeled as blasphemous and anti-Christian. I'm going to go to hell, right? So I right back at them, except they're already in hell. Hell is ignorance, and the suffering that comes from not knowing God. That's hell. That's all it is. Jay, there's always something the mind wants and to gain control over, and awareness knows it. Let the mind have its fun until it's not fun anymore. Yes, that's all you can do. right? If you try to stop it, engage with it, you feed it. It feeds on pain. It feeds on conflict. So you just, there was that movie War Games a long time ago. The only way to win is not to play. Beautiful. The computer figured it out. Why can't we? Tatiana, why Ava was accused of breaking a rule, and why Eve was accused of breaking a rule and taking an apple from a forbidden tree. Any thought? I grew up in an ascetic family society, so not studying the Bible. Well, it's a metaphor, right? What it represents is eating the fruit of duality. It was the fruit of the tree, wasn't an apple, right? They picture that because they want to make a fruit, common fruit, right? I mean, why not mango or papaya or jackfruit, right? Why not? I could see her chowing down on that. It's the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is duality that they ate. The sense of a separate self that happens to every single one of us. It's representing that which happens to all of us at some point very early on in our lives. We start this undifferentiated consciousness. We're just, my hand, no. My mom, no. There's no me or mine or any of that. Everything is just undifferentiated. There's no I whatsoever, right? So what happens though is something in the environment starts to change, right? And we feel pain, right? Mom does something that sets us off, and immediately there's this sense of a division between myself and other. Now it's illusory, it's not real, but there's a sense there, right? On an experiential level, there is a me and another. On the absolute level, no. But on this level, when that happens, there's a sense of there being me, not that. And that sense of me immediately tries to define itself and identifies with the body. And the moment that happens, duality happens. Me, other. Right? That me, other, the knowledge of good and evil. Mommy, daddy, good. Me, bad. Anything that happens, my fault. And that's exactly the story, what it represents to of that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't a real tree with a talking snake. No, the snake represents the egoic, the budding of the egoic mind, right? It's actually a beautiful story when you see it for what it is, and it beautifully depicts what happens to every one of us, the fall. And because of that, we imagine ourselves being cast out of the garden of delight. And now we have to work for the entire relationship now. The remedy to that, of course, was Christ, right? Christ, which completely negated the entire thing because he overcame the world. But the world was imaginary, right? That he overcame. It's beautiful. It's beautiful when you really understand it. The online in BC. I had the banner up there, right? That is the link, Anne, right there. gpwalsh.com/KECC, because it's sponsored by, being hosted by the Krishnamurti Education Center of Canada. So they're taking all the payments. They're doing everything. All I have to do is show up and teach and tell people about it, obviously. Let's see. Patricia, I joined you with a mind stuffed with stuff. I'm feeling closer to myself now. To say anything more is from my mind, which wants to quantify, to know now. So I'll just say thank you for the truth. Oh, you're welcome, Patricia. That's a very, very subtle and very spiritually mature thing you've just noticed. You don't need to know in the way the mind knows. Matter of fact, it can't. Right? You don't want to get lost in words. You don't need to. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, the only way is not to play. Yes. Oh, my question was why a woman? Um, in fact, the split of male and female is part of the duality, right? It wasn't man, woman. Remember, in the beginning, God created mankind, his image and likeness. In my image and likeness, I created he, them. Male and female created he, them. Two aspects of one being. The eating of the tree splits what are in fact two faces on the same coin into the imaginary two coins. And why was it a woman? Um, just mythologically, there's really no reason for it. If you look at it theologically, women were less. For a while, they didn't believe women even had souls; they weren't sentient, right? And the Hebrew tradition, Yahweh, the only God in all religious history who didn't have a partner, so he was male. Why would he have a penis? I can't. What's the point? I mean, it's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless, and it really is just the energy of what in fact was a warrior tribe, basically wandering around conquering and being conquered. Right, when they conquered, God was smiling on us. When we got conquered, God was mad at us. But this God was just this male figure. And so it was dominated male because it was a very aggressive conquering country. And so the women got put into that position. They weren't in other places. Obviously, the goddess was recognized as the source of all life and was the highest. Right? This is just a strange aberration over here. So there's no particular reason why it was a woman. The most important thing to recognize is that the unity, the wholeness of being in the eating of the apple split, and what in fact were two aspects of one thing became two things. Right? That's the whole nature of duality. Where are we here? Great song. Thank you. Hope that helps, Tatiana. Sophie, thank you. Still contemplating, there are no mistakes. If fully known, then peace. It's resistance to living from not knowing. Thank you so much. Yes, good. Really let that sink in. Life is going to happen. Destiny is what happens. Right? When you realize you don't really control it and you don't realize you don't need to, the ego gets terrified because it wants to control. But if you sink into the peace, you realize you don't need it. There's nothing controlling anything. David and Elaine. Thanks again, GP, for another beautiful satsang. Happy to sit and listen. Appreciate the early time slot and loving the mountain hermit look, like Grizzly Asm's younger brother. I'm not sure I'm younger, but yeah, it is kind of a different look, isn't it? John says you're a wonderful communicator. Well, thank you. Hello, GP says Zensmita. Good to see you. Can you please tell about the Shiva story you were talking about earlier? I was confused about David you mentioned in the story. Oh, it wasn't Shiva. That was an old biblical story. It was about forgiveness. I don't remember Shiva saying anything about Shiva, what might have sounded like Shiva. It was a prophet, and I don't remember the name. Oh, Bathsheba. That's where it was. Yes. Because the king always had the highest place, right? The king was the castle of the king was always up here, everybody else was down here. So David's sitting on his balcony and he sees this woman taking a bath on her rooftop, right? And he just got filled with lust. He wanted her. So he basically raped her. Right? They say it in a nice way. He was the king, but he basically forced her to have sex with him and then killed her husband. had her husband sent to the front lines of a war so he could get killed, so then he could take her as one of his wives. So Bathsheba, Sheba was the name of the woman that David succumbed to. He succumbed to his own lusts about. She probably pretty hot. What can I say? Okay, I got it in the chat for you. Oh, you want it in the chat? Okay, hold on a second. Let's put it in the chat as well. That's actually a good idea. Let me put the link in the chat. Oops, turn it back on again. Comments. Okay, there it is in the chat, and now you should be able to click on it and get to it. Can't get it from under your picture. Yeah, you're right. Form of control, Zansmita. So, does that answer it for you, Zansmita? It's just one of the Bible stories from the Old Testament. Okay. Form of control about blaming women. Oh, that too. I mean, ever since that time, I mean, that's one of the justifications that the Roman Church has used to suppress women forever. I mean, it's obviously nonsense, but it's one of the things. Yeah, it was huge. But what about him, right? You know, God says, "Did you eat the apple?" And he goes, she gave it to me and I ate." I mean, what a wuss. Hey, there's a man Eve can be proud of. Wait, they don't say anything about that, right? It's all about the temptress, right? And these regarded women were there just to tempt men, right? As if men, you know, were just abdicating their own control over their own stuff. Grow up, dude. Jesus. But women are supposed to be the pinnacles of virtue. It's pure cultural nonsense, which, you know, we've outgrown from. Women are quite capable of taking care of themselves, their own pleasures, their bodies, their own lives, everything about it. But that still lingers. It's still, women are, the fundamentalists still believe women are supposed to be subordinate to the man. It's nuts. And of course, obviously, there's the Habibs, there's the, I mean, it's like, it's cultural nonsense. And we're outgrowing it. We're feeling right now, the whole world is just shaking. The whole foundations of it are shaking because all of those things have completely outlived their usefulness, if they ever were useful. But they're, you know, they're done. They're done. They can't stand the scrutiny of even a little bit of awakening. And so they hold on through power, and that's what we're seeing. Right? That's what's happening in the world. That's the totalitarian tiptoe. It's people trying to be to hold on to what is obviously false through power. Yeah, grow up, dude. Adam was a wuss. Yeah, she was. I was almost going to say something else, but that would be that would be derogatory towards women. way better than that. Jay says, I guess the pricing is different for each day. Hopefully I could attend at least one day. Oh, it's that a day? I'll have to check on that. I thought it was for the whole thing, because last time it was just $100 for all 3 days, and then another 300 if you wanted to actually stay there, right? So there was a residency with food, which was separate from the just the thing. So I thought it was for the whole thing, but I'll check on that, Jay. Let me know and let you all know. All right. We've come to the end of another wonderful day of satsang. Yay. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your great questions. And, you know, I've been doing this now, I think it's going on 3 years or so. And I've just really, really been delighted to see the maturing of the questions. They're just getting so much, there's just so much right to the point. And just so much suffering coming up and being healed, so many traumas going away. God, so good, so good, so good. All right, everybody. Until my next meditation or next week. So love being with you. Namaste.